Great. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next chapter in the Tech London Advocates Forum. I think this is number 5 that we've done since launching the TLA COVID-19 Resource Hub. Just to start, some quick housekeeping. We're screen recording the forum, so if you would like not to be included, just turn off your camera. And please, may I ask everyone to go on mute? There'll be a time a little bit later for folks to ask questions. And just to give everybody a bit of background, as soon as we went into lockdown, I really wanted to make sure that advocates still had access to the support that the Tech London Advocates community offers. We need to be sharing advice, guidance, and expertise now more than ever. So we launched the TLA COVID-19 Resource Hub on the 27th of March. On it, there's a directory of advocates who are volunteering to provide help, support, and advice, all free of charge. There are great online resources. There are blog posts and advice pieces. We put our TLA surgery podcasts on the website, and of course, the TLA Forums. We have seen, which is remarkable really, we have seen a 5-fold increase in the Tech London Advocates website traffic since we launched the COVID-19 Resource Hub. And anecdotally, from the 60 or so advocates in the directory, I think we've added up that we've done several hundred pieces of help and advice to individual startups and scale-ups. So it's been very busy since the 27th of March. And now this is the 5th of our TLA Forum Zoom calls, and I'm absolutely delighted to introduce our 2 guests today. First is Janet Coyle, who many of you know and who wears multiple hats, and we'll go into that in just a moment. And also Susie Pallett, who's new, relatively new to the Tech London Advocates community and recently appointed as the London Tech Week Festival Director. So just a quick bit of background on Janet. Janet is the Managing Director of Business at London and Partners, recently promoted, if I recall, Janet, so congratulations, well deserved. She promotes London as a hub of diversity and a great place to innovate and invest. She's been a long-term supporter of London and has worked on projects for the London 2012 Olympics, and is co-chair of the TLA Scale Up Working Group with James Klein from Shoesmiths, who is also on this call. Susie Pallett, as I mentioned, is the London Tech Week Festival Director and was appointed, I believe, 3 months ago, and has over 19 years of experience in delivering events globally. And Susie is a welcome addition to the London Tech Week scene. So welcome to you both. They're here today to tell us about a series of online events called London Tech Week Connects, which takes place from the 9th to the 12th of June. This is a virtual series of events championing the power of collaboration and the resilience of the tech ecosystem and its effect on our global community. So let me just kick this off a little bit. Maybe Susie, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you just give us a high-level overview of London Tech Week and London Tech Week Connects?
Of course, and thank you for the welcome. I'm delighted to be here. London Tech Week is designed as an open and inclusive festival with a legacy environment of over 300 events coming together in a week with over 58,000 visitors, and an opportunity really to showcase how tech is transforming both business and society, bringing together the global community in this world-class hub of innovation. But spanning the entire tech ecosystem with streams of global impact, people and skills, investment, education, and trade and industry. With the unprecedented times and impact of a global pandemic, London Tech Week took an early decision to postpone the core event until September, but knew that with the pace of change and conversation, we still needed to facilitate narratives in the original dates. So London Tech Week Connects was launched and is coming next week as a series of virtual panels, fireside chats, and networking sessions, really to champion the power of collaboration and resilience of the tech ecosystem. Events next week will bring together the tech community in a virtual environment to tackle some of the most pressing topics for the sector at this time.
Now, Susie, I know you're relatively new in your appointment. What are 1 or 2 of your immediate observations about the London Tech Week events and the festival, and maybe something that you wanted to bring based upon your many years of experience in events?
Well, I think it's an interesting question, and actually it's probably, whilst it's a really adverse and challenging time for most, it's an opportune time for me to join, because what you're looking at is strategy. And for me, a festival is a touch point of activations and really covers the ecosystem, not just with industry sectors and finite conversation, but tastemakers, casual passerbys. We want to light up the city to be able to have everybody that's either connected within the tech ecosystem or as community know what London Tech Week is. And how you do that is probably, by virtual environments, by activations, that in the lack of a physical event this year, we can really start to springboard to a much bigger entity for 2021.
That's great, thank you. Now let me move from the newbie to the veteran. Janet, I know you've been involved with London Tech Week for a number of years. I've been involved since its inception. Give us a sense of your journey with respect to London Tech Week. When you first got involved to where it is now, what have you seen? And I guess what are some of your aspirations for London Tech Week Connects?
Okay, thanks, Russ. It was 2014, actually, 2014, like you, I was there at the beginning, where we first sort of had this idea to build a festival, to bring the tech community together, give them a platform and connect them with sort of global tech ecosystems. And in 2014, we launched it with Boris Johnson, actually, who was then Mayor of London, in Google Campus, I think it was in Shoreditch. It was a fairly modest affair. But we did, even in that first year, we managed to host 200 events. So that was pretty good for year one in terms of that festival approach and trying to provide that platform to let others host their own events. And we had about 20,000 delegates. Now, it's been an interesting journey since then. And at the time, we obviously reached out to Tech London Advocates and as a co-founder, because we felt it was critical to do this with others and with really valuable organisations. And then it transpired with Informa a few years later as another really key partner to really take this to the next level, and really amplify what we were building. So when we think about each year, it sort of obviously grew and got bigger. We also, when you think about 2019, sort of that was 5 years on last year. We're in our 6th year this year, aren't we? So last year, when you think, we had the Prime Minister, we've always had support from the Mayor of London, but to get that government support really helped amplify what we were building, not just in London, but around the world. So yeah, I think last year we had 60,000 delegates and 300 events. So, the events have increased by about 50% and the attendees by 100%. And I think what we're also seeing is a much stronger interest from around the world. We had 95 countries take part last year. And that's where we're keen to keep building the festival, making sure that we really build it as a global festival and build it in a way that we're really listening to the community. I mean, Tech London Advocates play a really critical role in that, in really being a voice for the tech community, and really identifying sort of the themes that people really want to have that conversation around, but also let's really look to the future to see what we want to collectively achieve as a community. We do quite a lot of work, and I know Susie's working on this, in terms of really shining a spotlight on some of those businesses that are really showing sort of drive and resilience and innovation, particularly through these challenging times at the moment. And how can we go forward and making sure that we give others a voice, perhaps those entrepreneurs that may be a little bit underrepresented in some of the big conferences, and how can we make it as inclusive as possible as we look to the future?
Great, thank you. And maybe just building on that, who else is involved in organizing London Tech Week? Who are the partners? Who are some of the sponsors? Who are the ambassadors? Can you, both of you, maybe Janet, starting with you, and then Susie, give us a sense of, yes, it's Informa Tech and London and Partners and Tech London Advocates, but there are many more people involved in the event. Can you paint us that picture?
I'm happy to kick off there. So the founding partners, if you like, are yourselves, Tech London Advocates, London and Partners, Informa Tech founders. So Informa Tech partnered with Founders Forum last year, which has meant that they've now come into the family and are delivering some of the content, which is really valuable. But then in terms of our sort of broader partnerships, we partner with Tech Nation, with government in terms of DCMS and Department of International Trade, which is adding a huge amount of value. Continue to partner with the Mayor of London and City Hall. But then we have and Tech UK, they play a really critical part as well. And then we have a group of ambassadors and advisors. So ambassadors who are really trying to help amplify the festival and the community, people like Jacqueline de Roccas, people like Sherry Coutu, and many others. And then we have a group of advisors who we meet regularly from across the tech industry to make sure that we're sort of listening to what the needs are in terms of the themes and the topics, but also to really harness their networks. So people like Pip Jameson from the Dots, Priya Guha, who's also on the board of TLA, but from Merriam Ventures. We have Julie Devonshire from King's, Andy Ahim and Mark Martin, also advocates actually. So we have a really fantastic cross-sector of advisors who are really sort of helping us to shape things going forward. Susie, you might want to talk about some of the sponsors perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a range of sponsors, and I think you've covered well with the partners aspect. You know, our sponsors are an extension really of the champion of the system. So it's ranging from Intel, IBM, we've had Microsoft in previous years, but right through to kind of Lakestar or Innofit, who's about, you know, mental health and well-being within the tech ecosystem. And then very critical, and touching on what Janet said, was the international trade partners that we work with. So things like Jetro for Japan or Missouri partnership for North America. And this is where we want to keep building, so that, that cross collaboration of international trade is happening.
That's great, thank you. And I guess kind of, you know, moving to the here and now, and Janet, you laid out a really nice transition, you know, from 2014 to now, and, you know, even getting, you know, Prime Minister Theresa May last year to open it. You know, these have been such great milestones year on year, but now here we are in a pandemic, and, you know, all events are virtual. So Susie, you touched on this a little bit, but, you know, maybe both of you can talk about, you know, why London Tech Week or LTW connects, and why now, and, you know, what was some of the thinking going into that? I know we've had a lot of advisory committee discussions about, you know, is it physical, is it virtual, and now it's virtual, but can you give us some context behind it?
So, yeah, I mean, we felt it was really important to really provide for the tech industry an opportunity to really provide a platform for those tech voices to showcase some of those businesses that have been really resilient and driving innovation through this sort of recent challenging times with the global pandemic. We didn't really want to wait until September. As Susie said, we took the decision to actually postpone the actual festival till September. So that will still continue to happen between the 2nd and the 10th of September. So next week, it's just sort of a few virtual events throughout the week, but really focusing on important topics of resilience, of the state of the investment landscape, of health tech and ed tech. You know, those sort of sectors that we're seeing that actually showing growth in those sectors, and really sort of shining a spotlight in some of those businesses, as I said, who are really sort of harnessing the opportunity to drive innovation. And that's what the tech community is so good at doing. So I think it was very important to still provide that platform, that voice, and that connectivity, if you like.
That's great.
Susie?
No, absolutely. I think that this is where we've touched upon in terms of London Tech Week is an enabler, a facilitator, a champion, you know, a collaborator or a platform for collaboration. For us not to have brought any narratives in kind of earlier on in the year would have been missing, you know, an opportunity for the tech ecosystem to be able to celebrate that, or to be able to, you know, amplify the great stories that are coming out, but also to tackle some of those conversations, like Janet said.
Yeah, and then kind of going from that, Susie, maybe can you take us through a little bit more about, day by day, what's happening during the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, and 12th, and maybe a little bit on, what are you excited to hear? Who are you excited to hear from?
Well, I'm super excited just because in the last 6 weeks of being with London Tech Week, it's been a furore in meeting everybody, all of these fantastic advocates, stakeholders, ambassadors, but also creating this program with the team. And I think we are super excited about some of the agenda programs that are going to be discussed. On Tuesday, we kick off with health tech, obviously very topical at the moment. And there's a whole agenda program that actually is live now, so you can go on to London Tech Week online and see the full agenda. But there is things like the new heroes of healthcare from Dr. Alex Kumar and Dr. Jack Kreindler. There's music, there's different things with well-being in health and tech, but also the topical conversations. We lead into Wednesday with a state of investment and supported with Tim Draper as one of the speakers. Resilience and leadership and resilience in startup and scale up on the Thursday with people and speakers like Roger Lynch from Condé Nast, Adrian Criddle, who's the VP and GM of Intel, Pip Jameson, one of our partners from CEO of The Dots. And then Friday, which is the culmination of the week really, and addresses something that's at the heart of London Tech Week with diversity and inclusion. So we go with our Accelerate Her programme that has Nancy DeBeck, who's CEO of Vice Media, Ariana Huffington, and then quite a big piece in the afternoon with Hillary Clinton and Cherie Blair, which we're super excited about, but also then a panel that will lead afterwards about Black Lives Matter. So diversity and inclusion in the tech ecosystem and current, global kind of conversations. We feel that this is the real good platform to be able to address that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And speaking about the platform, as this is virtual, can you give us a sense of the platform that's sitting behind this? Why have you chosen the platform that you've chosen, and a bit about how you see it working?
Yeah, it's been a tough decision, and obviously we've seen lots and lots of different demos and platforms, and some great creations that are being built from startup and scale ups at the moment as well. So I'm sure we'll see more come through as we go through into H2. But we wanted to choose a UK-based provider for the June LTW Connect series, and so we've partnered with Grip, who is a leading AI-powered event networking solution that facilitates interactions at events. So as opposed to just a streaming service, it's very much about that networking and the collaboration. And then that's integrated with a platform called Glisser, which is an award-winning presentation software. So an audience participation and interaction, which is key, we think. We didn't want to just have flat screens that is just one way. We wanted to make sure that the audience is engaged and that you almost still have those serendipitous connection moments, but in a virtual environment. So by integrating both networking and streaming, we hope LTW Connects provides both the content, but also the chances of those moments occurring.
So the platforms you said were Grip, and was the second one was NIST?
Glisser.
Okay, thank you. And obviously some challenges to move from 60,000 people all over London, at Excel and multiple events to everything virtual. And how has the thinking had to have changed along the way? And you've come in and you're new, give us a sense of the challenge that you've had to deal with, Susie.
I think the challenge is re-education. So instead of the team being able to just put a live program that you were going to do physically into a virtual environment, we have to be much more agile in timings, in program, in accessibility, making sure that you're not, tearing down somebody's whole day, that you can give them modular moments to dip in and out of. Challenging around the networking, planning. It's really critical to ensure those magical moments of attending an event can be replicated, whether it's the chance encounter, the collaboration that then stemmed, or what I love about events, those networking moments where the buzz of the room reminds you of the energy of your industry. And you just get that moment of standing back and saying, wow, this is the industry that I'm in. And that's the challenge in how to create that in a virtual environment. But with any challenge, there is also always opportunity. And the pace of change that meant that we've actually had to be stronger. You know, we have to be succinct in our messaging. We can reach wider audiences. It's made us think very much more proactively in how we reach the international markets and make our content available in local languages, or available to be able to be relevant to that local. So to be able to showcase what London Tech Week is promoting and talking about, but potentially in China or in India or key markets for us, so that we can widen the scope of London Tech Week and its outcomes. And I think, again, the challenge is, and which turns into opportunity, is it makes you define purposes, and it makes you, you know, pledge to them. So I think whilst we're all facing challenges, the positives will be felt for a longer term.
Great. And Janet, for the members of the TLA community and those who are on this forum and those who'll see it on the YouTube channel, how can they get involved, and how can they help be a part of London Tech Week? What are your thoughts? What are your suggestions?
Okay, thanks. Well, yeah, we'd love lots of involvement from advocates of TLA. Lots of ways to get involved. Please sign up. The great thing, like Susie said, it provides lots of opportunity. It's not like we're in a venue and it's limited to 200 people or 500 people. You can all sign up. There's no charge. You can access all these incredible events that we're staging next week. So one is sign up, share the opportunity with your networks, and also give us feedback. You know, we would love to learn. I mean, this is new for a lot of us. We're all sort of building in confidence in using virtual platforms, and you know, Susie and the team have done a phenomenal job of making sure that the events next week will be very engaging. There'll be lots of opportunity to network. So come, make the most of it, network, tell your friends, and give us feedback, and really come with us on our journey, not just to September, but in the future. So we, you know, the exciting thing that we touched on earlier is now we've built LTW Connect. It's also given us an opportunity to think about not just September, but our road to 2021. And we'll be planning activity and continuing with the conversation and the narrative between September and June 2021. So yeah, I mean, you're a really, really valued partner and co-founder. So advocates have got numerous ways of getting involved, not just next week in September, but in our sort of continuous journey with London Tech Week.
That's great. I'm going to come back. I'm going to just a prompt for those on the call. I'm going to come out for questions in a moment. So if you've got a question, ping me a message on the chat. Last kind of question, building on that point for both of you, for both Janet and Susie. You know, what is next for London Tech Week? You know, we get through London Tech Week Connects next week. I'm sure it's going to be a great success, looking at the content, looking at the themes. What do you see for September? What are some of the things that you're excited about for September? And then London Tech Week 2021, you know, we're kind of assuming that we're going to be back in the larger event arena by next year. Maybe yes, maybe no, but I think many of us are hoping for that. So give us that bigger picture vision, and you know, what the future of large scale events could look like. So maybe Susie, will start with you, and then Janet, we'll go to you.
Absolutely. I think for September, we are working towards really a virtual first program, so that we said, you know, everybody can access, whether on a wider regional perspective or from an international perspective. Yep. We are still stoic about being able to bring some physical moments, and whether that is a smaller audience in a very large room, but still being able to create some of the elements physically. But in terms of content and dissemination, being able to have it widened out. I think in terms of topics and thematics, we will still follow a structure of the themes across the days, but I think the whole industry and the tech ecosystem and the feedback that we're getting, and thank you, Janet, for asking for more. I think it's critical that we do listening tours with advocates, with ambassadors and the industry, to ensure that our planning is at the forefront of your needs and requirements. But it will be, I think, about future way paving. I think there's a lot at the moment in the now about crisis recovery. Yes, I think September we'll all be looking for future way paving and the successes from there. in terms of physical events and large gatherings, I think there'll be a new normal. When aeroplanes, you started not taking water onto airplanes, now we never do. I think that there'll be physical environments that there'll be biosecurity measures that I know as an events organizer we are working very closely on. But I think that there is a need and requirement and demand for people still to gather in events. In yesteryear in history, when there's been any adversities, events have actually come back really buoyant because it still is an opportunity to meet your industry in one place rather than having to go to various places. So stoically for 2021, I feel that there'll be a huge comeback for London Tech Week. As I said, I think the ambitions is to be able to really curate those streams, to bring it to a wider audience, to have tastemakers, casual passers-by, plus the industry sectors really addressed and grow London Tech Week as the history has done, and Janet very eloquently shared earlier, that we will continue to grow as we would in normal years.
Great, thank you. Janet.
Yeah, so I'm excited about September. I'm not going to give too much away now because we're focused about London Tech Week Connects for next week, but we will be attracting some big names in the tech industry globally for September. And as Susie said, we're very much going to be focusing on the narrative that drives the future development of our industry and the tech ecosystem. So we'll be hosting a Global Leaders Innovation Summit. And we're in parallel to that, and we're working closely with the TLA VC team on this as well, is an investor stream to really make sure that we are sort of supporting the investors, but also learning about future trends from them. Other themes for September will be future of work, health tech, climate change tech, very, very important to London, the UK, and cities around the world. And Accelerate Her are also going to have another sort of core event as part of it. I'm also really excited about some work that you, Russ, are co-leading really, and that's really activating a lot of the London boroughs in really getting involved in the narrative and the activity and the engagement around London Tech Week in September. So there's going to be a whole day where we're supporting activation in the boroughs. And then when we look, what does the future look like? We're all trying to work that one out at the moment, aren't we? But given London and Partners is also London's Convention Bureau, we are getting quite a lot of data in at the moment about what the future looks like for physical events. So we are responsible for, finding venues for event organisers from around the world. And even in the last 4 weeks, we've had about 39% of the event planners are still booking events for next year. Will it be the same as we had 6 months ago? No, probably not. So we probably will need to look to plan some kind of hybrid for now, which is what a lot of people are doing. But when you look at the venues right across London, 82% of them at the moment are saying that they are prepared and they're ready for the social distancing measures. So I do think as an industry, not just a tech industry, but as an events industry and as an ecosystem across London, I think we are preparing. I think people will be ready to reconnect in a physical environment. I think people have adapted extremely well to working remotely and to using these platforms. But it really doesn't substitute from that sort of serendipity of being in a room and meeting someone that could be a future partner, a future investor. So we'll be working really hard together with Susie and the team, together with Tech London Advocates and our other partners, to make sure that we're able to build a really compelling and impactful festival in June 2021. That's
great. Thank you. Right, let me open this up. If you've got a question, you can either raise your hand or in the chat. If you're not asking a question, can you go on mute so we don't get any background noise? Anybody want to kick us off? Or I can always call on somebody, as you know I'll often do. So what's on your mind? Yes, Dama, go ahead.
Hi, sorry for joining a bit later, and I actually have to say I have to jump off in a couple of minutes, but really great to hear all the reflections on how this has been moved to virtual as well, and the sort of lessons learned, because we're all sort of facing the same problems at the moment without the sort of events that we're bringing across. To one sort of consideration and one question. Given the sort of weird times that we live in right now, we actually plan as TLA Tech for Good. We've got a meetup group of roughly almost 10,000 people, and we're planning sort of a community check-in as part of London Tech Week Connect during lunch hour next week. I was wondering if there's any space for sort of fringe events, because this is really just meant as a community check-in, and if there's any sort of way that we can, cross promote these type of events as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We can. Oh, sorry, Janet.
I was just going to say, so London Tech Week, the whole model is the fringe events like you're outlining. So for September, we're absolutely going to make that possible in terms of making sure the platform is sort of can actually host those fringe events, and we can absolutely amplify what you're doing and support. I'll go to Susie now, but I'm not sure whether we've quite ready next week to actually host lots of other fringe events at the same time. But is that right, Susie? Should we encourage Dharma to host something else in September as well?
I think you nailed it in terms of September, absolutely, and there'll be much more platform availability for September. But I think for next week, we're very supportive in being able to push out on our channels, anything that we can do. So maybe if we take it offline to explore what opportunities there are for next week, and then we can see how we can take it forward.
That'd be grand, thank you. And I absolutely appreciate it, because it's a very last minute.
Yeah, of course.
The other sort of consideration, just one question on the September focus. Absolutely love to hear that sustainability, climate tech, activation of London boroughs is sort of front and center alongside the sort of state of investment, diversity, inclusion, and future of work, because they're all just very pertinent. But given the sort of, and that's speaking as a sort of early stage VC, I would love to see a lot more engagement for more diverse and underrepresented founders to be able to access more pre-seed and seed stage funding, especially now that the sort of landscape is shifting on and on towards more seed stage and more risk aversion as well, especially when it comes to angels. I would really love to see any type of facilitated session, event, panel on just highlighting all the wonderful pre-seed investors that are still writing checks. So there's more visibility for people to sort of see that it is still active, especially because the stats in the past couple of months have been really, really staggering.
That's really important, Dharma. And I mean, maybe you could join us in the conversations we're having around the investment stream, because it will be the seed investment as well as the sort of Series A, Series B. We want to make sure it's inclusive of all stages.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we would love to talk to you.
Yeah, grand. That's all from me. Thank you so
Great.
much for hosting.
Thank you very much. Great to have you. Mark, I'm going to come to you in a moment. Mark Duke, you've prompted. I'm going to ask you to ask the question. For Susie and Janet's benefit, we've been having discussions with the TLA working group leaders, Janet, as you know, talking about next week. It's a big week. London Tech Week Connects, CogX Festival, the launch of Digital Boost, which looks like it will launch on Tuesday, the 9th of June, which is when this video will go out. So Mark Duke, let me turn to you to have you ask the question that you just prompted, and then Mark Goblo, I'll come to you next.
Thank you, Russ, and thank you all for the update. Much appreciated. So my question is simply, is there a forum or method to link the outcomes of this piece of London Tech Week with initiatives such as Digital Boost?
To be perfectly honest, Mark, it's a really good question. When you say the outcomes, are you referring, because Digital Boost is around, identifying mentors, aren't they, and to support through the Founders for Schools model? Is that what you're referring to?
So let me explain the question a little bit more. And Russ, if there's something I've got wrong, please jump in. So I'm thinking there are going to be a lot of individuals, stroke businesses, who are going to be very engaged in the events, and there is going to be some form of support where Digital Boost can, in a fairly immediate sense, provide that level. So it's not just in terms of the mentoring, but there are also some workshops as well as part of that overall program. But I just think there seems to be like a really good fit, because you're undertaking a massive activity, engaging a lot of people, creating a real network buzz. And from those connections, there may be some obvious ways in which people can be plugged in. And as a follow-up and a follow-through, if there are already other initiatives that have been rolled out, that almost, it's a win-win, both for the event and also for those initiatives too. So I was just thinking in terms of how to cross that over. I don't have anything specific in mind. Maybe it's something we take offline, but to me, it just seemed like an obvious thing.
It is, Mark, and I'd welcome your thoughts on that. I don't think we've got an immediate answer, but I like the way, if we can join the dots, that's exactly what we should be doing. And Founders for Schools has always been, you know, the charity that London Tech Week is supporting. So can we take that offline, Mark? I'm really happy to have a chat.
No problem. No problem at all. My pleasure.
And just to follow that, so the networking part of the platform will be open for 30 days. So post next week, exactly for these type of opportunities, so that we then can say after next week, how can we maximize the opportunities for the people that did engage?
Yep, that's great, Susie. Thank you. Thanks, Mark Duke. Mark Gablo.
Hi, thanks for that. Yeah, it was just a couple of things. All these, it sounds great. I just wonder about the whole conference format, if there's a rethink needed, because they're great as mass gatherings, of course, but naturally it's the challenge these days. But there are other issues about mass gatherings. You know, if somehow it drowns out some of the more marginalized or marginal voices. So Dama mentioned about fringes, and I'm just wondering about whether the conference format could be rethought, and so it can accommodate, I don't know, different sizes and more specific get-togethers. You know, I mean, for example, my startup is around neurodiversity, tech startup, and I'm kind of within the tech for disability group in TLA. So there are different levels of specifics within, say, grand themes of inclusion and diversity. And somehow, if there's a way to kind of, it's a comment maybe, you know, if there's a way to allow for smaller groups to kind of occupy some of this format, not just mass gatherings, so they can get, you know, they can connect and then maybe somehow get their voice surfaced a little bit more. You know, in a sense of scale is what I'm trying to think about. Because I appreciate how conferences give you that buzz because there's so many people around you, but at the same time, you're lost in it, you drown in it. You want to find people who are more specifically connected to something you're working in, say a sub-theme within diversity. How to discover each other a little bit better by operating such a gathering on different levels that allows for smaller scale, more marginal type topics to flourish. As well as what Dama mentioned, I'm very early stage. I'd love to know more about what support there is from, you know, angels and others too. So I don't know, I was just wondering, is there for, you know, maybe next week is obviously too quick, but it might, even at least for September, is there maybe a rethink possible about, you know, given this change, how to change the conference thing in a way?
Okay, thank you. Janet?
Or if that makes sense, just wanted to.
Yeah, it really does make sense. And to be honest, Mark, I share your concerns. I'm not a massive fan of huge conferences where it's very difficult to navigate and find the right people to connect. And do join next week because we would love your feedback. There are going to be opportunities to network within the platform in a virtual way with different people. We're also, and I'm afraid it probably is too late next week now to arrange lots of additional roundtables, but we are arranging after, say, the resilience or startup and scale up event, we then planned some round tables that are moderated with small groups of entrepreneurs. And the challenge there is yes, we want to be inclusive. How can we include everybody when we're getting these smaller groups together? So take part next week, give us some feedback, and then let's see how we can make it better for September. We've got the time to rethink some of it. We'll still stage these core anchor events, as we call them, because they are really needed as the sort of the big thought leadership pieces and the sharing of insights and direction of travel. But I'm with you. We do need to sort of find a solution to help people have meaningful conversations with the right people in the fringes of these sort of the bigger pieces. I don't know, Susie, if you want to add anything.
No, absolutely. I think that Janet will have seen some insights of me. I'm very metric based in terms of why are we doing this and who for. So every audience stream or participant stream, what is the impact to that person? And some, that is not the big event. So I'm very keen to kind of look at how, with that whole ecosystem from grassroots to seeding to everywhere, what journey we can give them and what critical moments. So I'd be keen, really keen to follow this up. I think the virtual environment is almost an opportunistic way for us to launch this, because we can start to look at those smaller environments that then lead into a physical opportunity, when the restrictions allow us to. But yeah, absolutely key.
Yeah, hopefully next week will allow us to float some of those ideas for September or something like that. Even if
and Mark, as we said earlier, we're not only going to be holding an event in September and next June. We are, Susie and I, plotting to sort of do more activity throughout the year, and that might be where we can sort of engage a few people on some smaller activity and smaller roundtables.
Yeah, absolutely agree. London Tech Week as the week should be the culmination of all the experiences that we've had, 365 days the year before. So yeah, very excited about this.
Great. Yeah, as long as we give voice to more people. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. James.
Hi, thanks very much. I just had a quick question on the platform and I guess the app in terms of when, or I don't know if it's accessible now, but where do we find that, and how do we get onto it?
Absolutely. So you can register at London Tech Week online, and then that will send you an automatic profile link. The app, we didn't do an app like a mobile app this year just because of the turnaround time, but this will be a web-based system. You can go in, do your profile, start to network from today, and the agenda obviously starts on Tuesday.
Yeah, great, thank you. So it's just purely online, desktop based, on the website. Fine, thanks.
Yes, absolutely. Just because of the short time for this year.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions from anyone else? Nothing in the chat. Okay, good. Well, listen, Susie, Janet, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, giving us that useful overview of London Tech Week Connects, which kicks off on Tuesday. Obviously, Tech London Advocates will be doing a lot, promoting the event, pushing it out on social media, making sure everybody knows what's up and what's happening, and hopefully some constructive feedback here about how do we think about what happens during the week and how do we capture some feedback from everybody afterwards. So thank you both for taking the time to participate, and for everybody's benefit, feel free to go to londontechweek.online to see what's out there and make sure you register for the event. I just registered for all of my events today. It's very slick. It works really, really well. Congratulations, Susie. Really thought that worked exceptionally well. So I'm a big fan already. Right, with that, just as a reminder, the TLA COVID-19 Resource Hub, please use it. Please give us submissions. There's so much great content on there, and we're adding more on a daily basis. And this will be live during London Tech Week. Look out for the next TLA surgery. And thanks to everyone for participating, and stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you.